Welcome to From Pixels to Celluloid, a podcast dedicated to the discussion of video game adaptations.
Well, hello there, ladies and gents, and welcome to another episode of From Pixels to Celluloid, this podcast about video game adaptations. I'm one of the hosts back again to chat about some gaming adaptations. My name is Hypersonic55, also known as Curtis, and I have my other half with me here. Say
Hey,
hi.
it's Vincent, writer for One More Game.ph, and sometimes I do podcasts.
Yeah, and we are a nice little pair that just like to chat about this kind of stuff because It's it's weird now. We're in May. All of the front side of the year's adaptations are out right now, and we won't have any until October. And it just feels weird that there won't be any major, adaptations to chat about in the interim period. But we still have a few topics here and there that we would like to discuss. One big one, which will have like spoilers, highlighted later on. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting time in 2025.
Pretty much, yeah, like all this sporting events that we're gonna go through today. Um, yeah, it's a few things on the line. Just wondering, any news that you want to share regarding like game adaptations that you've heard of recently?
Okay, so there is this one adaptation, like bit of news that came out of nowhere, and that was the recent announcement that there's going to be an Outrun movie based on the popular arcade series. This is a series of racing games. I've not played them personally myself. I've never been big into like arcade races, but for people who were alive and playing those games during that time, that it is a highly regarded like arcade racer series. And again, it was announced that there's going to be a movie, but it's coming from Michael Bay. That Michael Bay, the one primarily known for blowing things up in most of his movies, primarily the Transformers ones, but obviously he made Pain and Gain, he made The Rock, he made a couple of the Bad Boys movies as well. So yeah, again, infamous director. But when it comes to franchises or films that you'd expect to tackle after his last set, no one was thinking of a video game adaptation. And this is one of the strangest ones. It feels like we're back in the 90s again, where you're basing your next adaptation on a property that has next to no story. Now, I haven't played the game, so I don't know if there's anything in the title cards or maybe something when you win the game that there's like some sort of end credits where you get to see some little bits and bobs here and there. But I feel like this is going to be one of those adaptations where it's mostly just made of original material that comes from the script and the director. But again, just knowing Michael Bay and his tendencies and his like sort of isms, I don't know what kind of movie this is gonna be. It's an oddity. And then obviously you have the fact that Sydney Sweeney is producing this. Now it does make you wonder what is in this project that makes her want to be attached. And will she, star in the movie? Because obviously, if she does, that will lend, some star power and some interest to this project. But again, Outrun. What?
Well,
I'm confused.
Well, yeah, like with Outrun, if you've I've played the game like multiple times. If you're a big fan of Yakuza series, you go to the Sega arcade, you'll basically like run into Outrun, like one in one game or another. It's a time trial game, like with like a Corvette and a Glenn Powell looking guy. And of course, there's a blonde next to the seat because why not, right? And since Sydney Sweeney is attached to it, guess who she's going to be playing? And it's not the me, or maybe, they could switch them around, Michael Bay style, have all those Bay like explosions and slow motions, and they switch seats, and then she starts driving. Get that whole like DEI thing out of the way. Girl power, yeah. But yeah, all that it's a big time trial game, like you're given 60 seconds and then you go through five different locations, and every time you beat your time, more time gets added to your total time, and by the time you complete it, you just have to complete the game as a whole under that 60-second mark, and every time you hit a checkpoint, you get more time added. Simple game with a bunch of like obstacles. And the funny thing about that game is like that Corvette is made out of, I don't know, like really strange molecules that like that that Corvette is indestructible. Like you hit a freaking wall, a tree, and any obstacle, it just flips. It does this like whole somersault, and then the two like passengers, the driver and the passenger in the vehicle, they kind of like do this kind of stunty thing. So I can see where Michael Bay is gonna add a lot of his Michael Bayisms to this with probably 100 more explosions than Outrun is known for.
Yeah, and I mean, like now that you've described that, I think, yeah, again, I have seen some gameplay of this here and there, but with that whole thing about, getting to a location and having time added for, being able to succeed and continue, I wonder if that might be like, I wonder if the film will have like some sort of central gimmick where it is just like, driving to the next location and it has to be within a certain amount of like time, or there'll be, I don't know, I don't know if they're gonna try and do like a weird speed thing where it's just like, oh yeah, if you don't drive within this certain amount of time, then the car explodes or something. So maybe it's just like you drive to gain more time, but like to get to your ultimate destination, you just have to keep going, or there's gonna be something crazy that'll happen. I don't know, but
Something like that,
again,
yeah.
Michael Bay, like for all of his for all of his like was it issues like he does know how to make pretty looking movies. Like his films do come across as fairly slick and well crafted in some occasions when he's not overdoing it to hell and back. But since this is going to be potentially hopefully less CG heavy, it might just be like something a little bit more simple, closer to like his Bad Boys films or like Pain and Gain. So I don't know, maybe
But
we'll
is
see.
anything simple with Michael Bay?
No, but you kind of hope that lessons are learned, that he can try to change, but I don't know.
Well, like since this is a Sega property and Sega is really interested in pushing their video game adaptations, starting with that god-awful Prime Video Yakuza spin-off. Like a Dragon. You can't
Oh
call it
yeah.
Yakuza now. They had like I'm dead naming the game. But yeah, like something like Chase HQ, for example, like would definitely be like a much suitable thing for Michael Bay style. But since I guess Sega gave Universal a lot of money to adapt their series, you probably went, okay, I kind of want to do something like Chase HQ, and then see, okay, like let's see what we can do with Outrun. And as you said, very little story. You can do so much with it. And then you can just add like so much Michael Bayisms to it. Like I don't think there are any like crazy purists that would like look at it and go, what the fuck? But the thing is, like, as long as he makes it colorful, as long as he has the Corvette, the Glenn Powell looking guy, I know it's gonna be a Glenn Powell. Like Glenn Powell has to be cast, like like with a stupid like sunglasses and scarf and whatever like sweater thing, and like the blonde next to him. Maybe it's kind of like The Island with instead of ScarJo and
Oh,
Ewan McGregor, like you basically like have that. Maybe there's some I don't know. Maybe there's some like what's that? Like body splicing and clones going on, and they have to outrun the clone, like the cops chasing after them. I don't know. Anything goes with Michael Bay.
mate, that's the thing. Yeah, it could be anything right now. And I guess that's the interesting yet kind of scary part. We won't know until we get something more tangible, but goodness knows how long it'll be before we know more about who else is involved, when it actually starts filming, and when we actually get like a premise of what it is. But depending on what this says, this will be like an interesting indicator of what will happen with other Sega properties going ahead, because obviously they found their success with Sonic, and they tried with the Like a Dragon series, but by all accounts that didn't do so well. And Sega, I think there was talks about them wanting to do another version of House of the Dead as well. And I mean, like we can only go up from like that disgusting movie from like, was it? I think that was 2002.
Another
Also, I think that
Ewan
was
Ball movie.
Uwe
Is it a
Boll.
Ewan Ball movie?
Yeah, yeah, it was the first of his many. That little trail in the 2000s where he just tackled adaptation after adaptation, and it was like it almost got worse with each one. Although I would say, if I'm being kind, the House of the Dead is probably like the depths of the earth. And then like, is it how Alone in the Dark was only slightly better, but Blood Rain was horrific. And I didn't watch, I think, In the Name of the King. At least I
Oh,
think
In
that's
the
the name
Name
of
of
that
the
one
King
that
is
Jason
probably his
Statham
best
was in.
one, just for the unintentional comedy. Set
Oh
in
man, yeah. I think, go on.
yeah, it's set in like it's set in some like medieval England, and everybody has their own like accent. Like half the actors are trying to do something Shakespearean, and the other half is like Jason Statham going hello, like it's the megalodon, like Jason Statham's thing, and then you have Ray
Uh,
Liotta doing Ray Liotta. It's
that sounds
amazing.
painful.
Like it's a good watch. It's a good watch. Just like leave your brain in the door, like have a drinking session. It's fantastic for like poking fun at it. But yeah. Oh, I had a lot of
Maybe I'll
fun with
consider it for a
it.
drinking session.
Dungeon Siege, I think. That was the game that's being adapted.
Good gravy. Let's move away from this for a while because we could plot about like what Outrun could be for a while, but
Totally.
um
But speaking of Sydney Sweeney, she also booked something with John Chu, Split Fiction, like that Joseph Fares game that came out this year. And it's one
yeah.
of those two-player things. Of course, she's gonna play the blonde, because why not? And then if there's one thing that's great with Sydney Sweeney is like she's great with playing duplicitous characters, where she presents herself as one thing and then suddenly she shifts into something else. Because that Zoe character does have a lot of layers without spoiling the game, and I think yeah, like she's a good choice for that. Like her best roles are usually that type of girl who like Cassie from Euphoria that starts off as this and then shifts into something else. But that's the funny part is like her role in White Lotus and in Madam Web. I feel that there she could have added more layers to that. Where like I really liked her when she has that shift when something snaps. But yeah,
Yeah.
Madam Web, like I was just waiting for that Julia Carpenter to go from like that nice girl shtick to some crazy like, spider psycho thing that's going on. But it is Madam Web. Yeah,
Gosh, yeah.
speaking of like a great time in movies, not because of the actual source material, but what you bring into it as an unintentional comedy. But then again, it's a split fiction made by what's that? Joseph Fares. So yeah, there's a lot of cool like back and forth banter going on between the two characters. I'm really interested in who they'll cast as the one playing the opposite of her, which is a cool like buddy adventure game, pretty much.
Yeah, and I've not played the game. I think the only one of his games I've played was it Brothers? Like that one where you had to play as like two brothers that was trying to escape that jail. I think that came out like years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I have seen obviously footage of Split Fiction, and it looks insane. The amount of like various different worlds and the color schemes and the various different types of gameplay that they've been able to implement in there. It looks cool. I'm just wondering how that will be adapted into film. And I'm just curious, how much of it will you be able to see play out in its entirety, or will there be like, sort of montages where you go through certain sequences? And you get to see like I don't know, some trial and error in terms of how these things come together, how much of the game aspects will be translated into film or how much of it will be changed, because obviously the interactive nature of like gaming, there's only so much of that you can try and translate before it starts to feel gimmicky. So I am curious to see how that whole thing is going to work, but I'm sure it'll be an interesting experience. This seems like the one of the more interesting and intriguing kind of projects, because obviously there's certain games that get adapted and you're just like, why did this need to be a thing? But then
Yeah.
there's other ones where you're just like, I'm curious to see what you're going to do with this thing. So
Mhm.
this project definitely falls into the latter. So
Yeah.
I'm very curious. The scope of it could be really cool, especially when you if you get the visuals down. And I'm sure like Mr. Ferris will be like, heavily involved because like considering his his stance on the Oscars beforehand, I'm sure he'll want to make like, was it a good project so he can like, is it sort of flip them off in another kind of way where I'm just like, look, my games are doing well and even adaptations are doing well, based on my project. So clearly you guys are crap in comparison, but like, I don't know, we'll see.
Something like It Takes Two is like the story for It Takes Two is amazing. So I would say as a film adaptation, they could just focus on the whole family drama and how the couple works together in order to try to rekindle their relationship and also like basically get their daughter, save their daughter in a way, right? With split
Yeah.
fiction, there's just to quickly summarize the plot, you have two would-be authors, like aspirational authors, trying to get the book published, and they get a book deal from the shady corporation that wants to mine their ideas. So they could probably focus on that plot. I am interested, like you are, to look at the two-player aspect and how that plays into the game. Like that's the thing, like all of Joseph Ferris's games to the point of like, I have to review another one of these two-player games, or I have
Hmm.
to find someone, and then like I have to, which of which of these game reviewers do I have a good relationship with that we can like stand each other for the next 12 hours to play this freaking game so I can get my review done on a time. But that's just me. I would say like, if I was playing this casually, I could probably like grab a buddy and then we can play it which is good. Like I had my roommate play with me, and it was pretty cool. Yeah, and as you are like
Yeah.
really, really interested in like seeing the game mechanics. Well, speaking of game mechanics, making it into the big screen, how about that Until Dawn?
A God. Okay. So, it feels like we've talked about Until Dawn a fair bit on this podcast. Especially going from last episode till now. But yeah, I mean, to summarize my previous thoughts prior to going into the movie, I was curious as to why this adaptation was being made. The original game was already a sort of like cinematic experience already, just say for the fact that you had to make choices and the right ones in order to make sure you got the right outcome. But I was like, okay, I'll be willing to give it a chance. And then I found out via the first trailer that it was going for a completely different gimmick with a whole bunch of different characters, save for Peter Stormare being the only connected tissue. So I was just like, okay, I'm sort of out. This sort of just seems wrong from the outset. But then the film came out and I heard some rumblings about it. Most fans hated it, and people who didn't play the games were just like, it's okay, but it's not really saying much. And, I saw it. When did I see it? It was either earlier this week or last week. I can't remember. No, it was early this week. And yeah, it was the best way to summarize it is like if you have no attachment to the game, it's a decent enough horror film. It has a unique gimmick, and there are certainly some cool bits of violence and kills, and there's some interesting ideas in there. However, if you're looking at this as an adaptation of the video game, it is just not good. It tries to do a couple things here and there to justify why it is how it is, but by the time it's over, you're just like, why? So, yeah, that's my like 2 cents on it. I would say like, simply put, not bad, but as an adaptation, not good.
Yeah, for me, I was really interested in how it will play out because when I watched the trailer, they have this whole like Groundhog Day thing going on, which you have that like the Happy Death Day, Edge of Tomorrow type of thing going on with this horror gimmick, possibly playing on that whole. I guess that's the way that they wanted to tackle like the video game aspect of it, the whole iterations and the whole respawning bit. Having played Until Dawn and like as a fan of Until Dawn, it really goes against like the whole because like if you take a look at the Until Dawn story, you would go, yeah, like it's a pretty decent story, something good for a horror game, but the whole gimmick that the whole super what's that? Super massive super giant super they all have the same thing, super massive, super giant.
I know.
Yeah, like the Dark Pictures like gimmick where you're playing an interactive movie and your choices shape and how these players will survive the night. I guess they took the whole "let's survive the night" aspect of it and try to adapt that. So, how I reconcile the game as a fan, I would say that the 13 iterations that they went through. I guess you have to play through Until Dawn 13 times. I love the game, but I've only played it like all the way through 5 times. And I go like, you've played it through 13 times? What a shitty ass player. How do you keep getting everybody wiped? Like, like even on my first try, I got like two characters surviving. And then you do runs where like all characters survive. You do runs where like all of them die.
Yeah.
But yeah, like why are you such a shitty player that like 13 times you keep getting them all killed? And I'm like, what the fuck? What's wrong with you, David Sandberg? Fucking like hit those like quick time events easier, you know? Like it's your 13th time. Like, sure, you got all the quick time events right. That's how I reconciled it. But
Man, I wish I
yeah,
had that.
I would say like the first half of the game, half of the movie. I'd say like yeah, I was impressed with like some of the kills. There was this kill that was like I think they're going for there's a tonal disparity, I would say. Like should I be laughing or should I be more should I care for the characters? But you don't. Like I actually cared more for like Peter Stormare's character a lot more. Having seen him in Doctor Hill and like the first game as the narrator, kind of like more or less like unreliable narrator character that ties everything together such a
Yeah.
way the same as like the curator and all the Dark Pictures anthology series where like you think he's helping you. There's this mechanic in the games called premonitions where once you collect them you'll see what happens in the future, like they'll just show like a glimpse. So you go like, oh, like when this happens, like it kind of tricks your brain to go, okay, like do I pass this quick time event or do I have to make the right decision, or else one character will just die or um just go. But yeah, like I like that. Like he was having fun with a role with a character, having been reunited with it. And
Yeah.
personally, I think they should have done a lot more with a character. That's why I was saying like the second half of the film really feels kind of off. But they did what they can. I'm impressed that they were basically able to, um, you know, sustain my attention for a while until you go, okay, all right, here we go. Some of the same old bullshit seen in horror films about a game that deconstructs the horror film genre as a game. But, I'm gonna stop right there before I, turn this into a video.
So yeah, I mean, for those who haven't seen the trailers, the basic premise of this film is you've got this group of young individuals. They're on some little like road trip, and the main girl within the group, her sister's gone missing, and they're on this journey to try and figure out where she went. They stop off at a gas station, and she gets a tip that further down this road, there's an area where people are known to go missing. They find themselves in this house. However, they find out that once they're in this house, they get killed, but then they will basically wake up again the day before and realize that they're basically in a time loop and they have to navigate these various different ways of being killed and have to survive until dawn, as the name of the movie is. Now, for me, I really wanted to try and care about these characters because obviously, the main girl and her missing sister, that's like one of the driving aspects of this film. But then as the film goes on, there's certain little extra details you learn about not only the rest of the characters, but also about this town and certain other things that get a little bit more context as things go on. And there's a lot of interesting things on paper. And like Vincent said, I think there was a lot of like, good kills in here, and there was like some decent horror aspects that you would come to expect. And I appreciate the tension. I think the tension was pretty good for like, a chunk of this movie, and the use of practical effects and violence seemed pretty solid. And again, some of those kills, like when you see them, it's just like crap. Okay, like that was pretty brutal. But there's just the myriad of issues that started to become apparent as the film went on. Again, the characters weren't that likable. I found some of them to be quite annoying, and I was just like, can you just die permanently so we don't have to see you again? Just like go away over there. And the time loop gimmick and certain plot points weren't utilized to their full potential. I feel like, with again some retooling at the scripting stage, we could have got something pretty unique. But there's also some aspects about the rules of the world, or at least this part of like, the film that these guys exist in that don't necessarily make sense, or at least like there's some sort of rules, but there seems to be at least a lack of explanation for how certain things work, which lead to moments where certain things either contradict or just don't quite make sense. And even by the time this film is over, I was finding myself just like, this feels inconclusive. I feel like there was some other things that needed to be, explained or tied up. And even though this film is self-aware, it does that thing where it knowingly like knows what it is. At the same time, I feel like there's other horror films that have done this sort of thing before, but better. So obviously people have made like certain comparisons to like Cabin in the Woods as well. And that was definitely like even though I'm not really a big fan of that movie, I do feel like that film is a bit overhyped. I would say that film definitely does certain aspects of what this film is doing, but much better. And Vincent, I think you mentioned before about there being some tonal inconsistencies in terms of like, certain things that are supposed to be serious, but also having moments of what could be potentially dark humor, but you're not sure if you're supposed to be chuckling about it. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, as like yeah, I really agree with you with the whole other horror movies have done this better because they took Cabin in the Woods with all its meta commentary and deconstruction of the whole horror genre. Basically, I would say like I'm not a big fan of it because it's like the whole horror killer type of thing. I'm gonna be the horror movie. There's that like pomp and arrogance, I would say, and just explaining why slasher movies function the same way, why the conventions of the slasher movies, why all these dumb teens do these things, and then they try to like explain it in such a way that this is all part of a giant conspiracy to prevent like an eldritch horror coming into the world, which is a pretty cool idea on paper. And executionally, like when they executed the movie, I would say like yeah, like they took the whole what's that Evil Dead thing and tried to like elevate it, which is like okay, sure, why not? But the thing is, like, until Dawn took half of that, and as you said, like, all these rules don't like make sense because they didn't have the rules without completely ripping off Cabin of the Woods, right? Like, it's the first couple of iterations. You come in, there's this like hooded killer, and then there's this witch type of character with like psychic powers and like the whole supernatural ghost aspect. And then you have we're stuck in the thing, and then there's this virus going around, the like people die and so, like really violent, but really like over the top kind of ways that it's kind of funny. And then in the second half, and then you have the whole like Happy Death Day like time loop aspect. So you take these two pretty big high concepts, put them together. That pretty much would go against what like try to see what they can cobble up to make it feel like how the mechanics of a video game would work in like an Until Dawn type of movie type of thing. So I guess this is the best they can come up with with all the pre-production and with all the studio budget and David Sandberg's capabilities as a director. He's made some pretty good movies, but he's also made a few stinkers. Sadly, this kind of falls in the middle of
yeah,
like the good and the stinker. And then by the time you hit the end, like we can just keep going with this whole episodic thing over and over and over until the credits roll, and I don't know how they're gonna end it. So I guess like they have to go with the safe. Let's end it this way. Try to give them a happy ending. Everybody like does this, whatever. Like this is the iteration that we're gonna go through. And then yeah, it just falls into all these convenience storytelling. Like since we've showed you that this can happen let's make it solve all our problems in the end. So
yeah.
so yeah, that was my that's the biggest thing that I just went, really? But yeah, they did allude to the one idea that like wasn't really clear in the very end is like since time moves differently in this sort of pocket universe, did these events happen before or after the actual like Until Dawn game? Because they have a bit of a tease in the end, like where they showed like the original mansion where the events of the game happening. So are they gonna do like a straight up adaptation? And will Rami Malek play like a 16-year-old dude? I don't know. We'll see. I think he can
Yeah,
pull it
because
off. People have like
literally,
all these 30-year-olds are pulling off teenagers anyway, so pay him enough
because I
money.
remember there was yeah, because like by the time you get to the end of the movie, I was just like, oh, there we go. There's the actual game, but then it's just like, but wait, how? How does this? So it's those little like aspects like those where I'm just like, okay, so you knew that you weren't really an Until Dawn adaptation. So you attempted to do an original thing, but sort of grafted like aspects of Until Dawn onto it, and then you sort of teased the actual version. But does that mean you want to set up a sequel? You're actually going to do the game, the film that was based on the game originally? Because then I'm just like, that kind of seems a little redundant. So I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. This it was weird to me.
Well, that's the way the cookie crumbles, I guess.
But yeah, this film, it wasn't made for that much. So I feel like with a certain amount of time in the cinema, it might be able to make its money back. But I don't see it doing so well so far. I've seen it's making some money, but not anything that's making waves or at least like, getting people enticed to see it. So I don't know, man.
Yeah. Well, speaking of horror, like we've been catching up on The Last of Us season 2, and the supporting event really like happened much sooner than later.
Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, before we get into the episode, we're just gonna have to throw out spoilers about this because, I mean, technically speaking, it's been almost 2 weeks since this event occurred in the show, but also there's not really any way for us to talk about the specific nature of it without going into spoilers. So there will be time codes below if you want to skip this, but we're gonna be talking about that second episode of The Last of Us season 2, where again the sporting event occurred. So spoilers from now on. Let's go.
Yeah, you've been warned. So yeah, this is your absolute last warning. Turn back or go ahead to the future. Well, we'll talk about a few more things. But this time
Yeah.
we're talking about, yeah, like a good like US tournament, or was it the Masters Cup? Was it a 6 iron or was it a five?
Oh man. To be honest, I was actually looking at that and I was trying to figure out, like, is that a flat iron club or is it another type of one? Was it one of the driver ones? But considering the look of the golf club itself, I was like, no, this has to be a flat iron of some kind. I don't know. I was just like, hmm. But
Something like this.
yeah, it definitely looked like that. Or like Vince has got his own golf club he's showing us right now.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Oh no, yeah, this is my like pitching wedge for like pitch and putt. Like
Ah,
scored a few birdies with that one. So
nice. Nice. Okay.
yeah.
But yeah, like with The Last of Us episode 2 in second season, we did get to, finally get Abby and Joel together, and one of them disappeared from this earth. Guess who it was?
Uh,
So yeah, Pedro Pedro Pascal once again is no more.
well, he'll be in Fantastic Four, so.
Yeah, I mean, unless he ends up like was it John Krasinski's version, and then he gets like killed like that. God.
With another golf club.
But no, just that would be funny. I don't know.
Uh,
Maybe they do make it like, a fancy like, golf club to, take him out. I don't know.
then you'll have like you'll have Galactus going, fuck this. It's the ultimate nullifier. Not another golfing episode. Like this universe does not deserve to exist.
But yeah, I mean, like,
We digress.
obviously there was a so in the episode there are like at least a few diversions from how certain events play out in the game, and I think this, along with episode three, are doing some interesting things where I think with me, as I said before, with season one was this, I'd say 80 to 90% copying of the homework of the original game with like a few changes or expansions here and there. But this season seems to be taking the broad strokes of what happened in the second game, but remixing a few things and making more additions. So I would say it's at least a little bit more ambitious in terms of not being one to one. There's certain bits of dialogue and certain scenes or certain locations that feel, again, one to one like the game. But then there's a lot of interesting little bits or like whole changes where you're just like, huh, okay, interesting. In terms of that second episode, I would say it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I feel like, the event didn't hit as hard as I expected it to, but there were certain other aspects surrounding it that I thought was decent. But some of the criticisms I've heard about the episode, or at least this second season so far, are starting to become at least a little bit apparent to me. But yeah, obviously we'll get into those specifics later on. But yeah, how about you? How did you feel watching it?
Well, as someone who's played the game and someone who's fortunate enough to avoid the internet during the time when the leaks happened, I was coming into it pretty fresh. It came out of nowhere. Like as I said in the last episode, in our podcast last episode, a lot of the I like The Last of Us 2 really feels like a shock since when you played the game you were starting through it from Ellie's point of view. And then, in that like act one type of thing, you kind of shift between Ellie and Abby, and you're like, oh, who's this person? Like, why are they here? Like, what are they doing in the middle of the snow? Like, are they lost? What's going on? But I do know that like Abby was like played the big part when like in the promotional materials that like she is the other half, the other protagonist to Ellie. So okay, cool. Like let's go along with this. Like see where it goes. And then when the event happens, you were just I was just in like disbelief, to the point where I think I just dissociated. I just went, oh, like he's coming back, right? Like, yeah, because the trailer showed like it's probably flashbacks then, So like as you're playing the game, you're going through the same like five stages of grief, the same way, like in Final Fantasy VII when okay, it's another spoiler warning, like Ares dies, right? Like and then you go through most of disc two with your stages of grief, like yeah, she's not coming back. Like all that grinding you did, all that, like that level 60 character's not coming back. But you get to keep her materia, so
Yeah.
you get to sell her equipment. So yeah. But yeah, like a whole like you go through a whole point of grief throughout the game. And then you just go back and you go like Joel wasn't really like the greatest of all characters, right? Like he's flawed, but at the same time, I guess that's the feeling that you get like looking back at it as Ellie. You go through most of the game in that grief, and you just want some closure. And I guess that's where the revenge comes in to the point where it's really destructive. But I'm getting really ahead of myself. But yeah, once to the specifics of the game, like the game was much more brutal, where she was like really going at him with the golf club. Like you really feel like, oh, like yeah, you've done something wrong to like, basically like all your sins caught up with you, like Joel, and these are the consequences to your actions. But yeah, it doesn't make it any less sad, doesn't make it any less devastating. But with the TV show, knowing that it's coming, you're going like, are they gonna just save it for the third episode? No, no, they're going with this, like, holy crap. And then when it happens, it wasn't, as you said, it wasn't as devastating. There are certain things that you can show on TV, and there are some, I would say, logic jumps that you can accept as a video game, because like half these characters can take
Yeah.
Damn it, unless you're playing in grounded mode. Half these characters can take damage like a normal human would possibly just like die of shock before the damage even shows up, right? So yeah, like yeah, she was wailing. Like I also like that how like, Caitlyn Dever doesn't have the same like gorilla body type that like Abby has in the game, right? So
Yeah.
so like when she was flailing on him with her hands, I would say like yeah, like that's a little bit more I would say like like you don't suspend all disbelief and how Joel went with like the other half of the golf club being stabbed, whereas in the game like she swung her final club without breaking it. That's like I don't know what that club was made of. But yeah, like golf clubs can really take a lot of damage because those golf balls aren't soft.
I don't know, man. Maybe it was like reinforced with like some secret adamantium or something.
I don't know, like what, like the world ended 2005. Like those clubs have been around for 20 years. And, like
She got a custom made one somewhere. I don't know, man.
I don't know, like that club looked pretty pristine. Like I buy a lot of used clubs because it's not exactly the cheapest type of like hobby, right? So, like you go to the used
Yeah,
club store and then you just see like a lot of these like used ones, and then you find ones that are like about 5 years old, like 10 years old that are still pretty good. They're still pretty good condition. You still have a few like more years left into them. But the thing is, the moment like you hit around 10, 20 years, they start to develop some rust, like when they're not maintained. Like they've been sitting there for 20 years and they look pretty new. But that's me as a golfer, just being like nitpicky.
see,
And
these are all the details that I would never know. Um,
anyway, yeah, I would say
but
like
yeah,
yeah, a lot of it you can suspend your disbelief, and I would say like um the TV show is not really going for the shock and not going for like the immersive feel that how you would feel when you're playing the game. Like it knows its medium. It's mostly passive, and I really commend them for preparing the audience for what's about to come. Like that Caitlin, that Abby's about to exact revenge on this person that did her wrong, and you know what's coming. But yeah, as a lot of the criticisms go, I would say that's why I'm really curious to hear how you, as someone who hasn't played the game, um, took in the story. Because me, like, I'm already biased by playing the game and then knowing what's coming. And I've played the game twice to get the platinum, so I've seen it happen like multiple times just to um given the least. And then like I have no complaints with the TV series. I actually like the way that they went with it. Then again, also I've had a few years to like process this, and I'm pretty much watching it the same way as I'm watching fans of Game of Thrones like table flipping when all the big deaths happen, and then I just look at them like James Franco meme going, yeah, first time. But yeah, I'm
yes,
curious to hear your thoughts as someone who's fresh. This is your pretty much really like besides the spoilers from before that was leaked out. Like this is pretty much your first foray, your first experience into this. What's that? This harrowing ordeal.
yeah. So again, as stated in one of the previous episodes, when this whole hullabaloo came out online, when the leaks happened, again, I just happened to be adjacent to the news when things were going on, and I was just like, well, sometimes certain gaming controversy, you're just like that person on the other side of the fence, just like, what's going on over here? I'll just peek over, see what's going on. Like bloody hell, it's like World War III going on over there. It's like crap. So. I had found out about Joel's fate in the game. I sieved through all the like minor details, but again, that was the one thing that a lot of dudes were like freaking out about. And then when it actually happened, it was almost like there was a calm in between. But again, there was those who knew, but then there was also those who didn't. And there were those who were able to accept and those who could not. And I was always aware that, like, is it Joel met his ends at the hands of a golf club by Abby. Now, for the longest time, I'd never actually seen what it looked like. From the way some people had talked about it online, I thought she caved his head in, as in, like, is it you'd be seeing, like, skull and, like, is it fractures and all sorts of stuff. Like, I thought we were bordering on like a Mortal Kombat fatality kind of like level of like impact. But, having seen the scene in the game, at least, I was aware of how it went down there. So I was kind of curious to see how it happened in the show. I feel like the moment was mostly good, in the sense that, broad strokes were still the same. Once the people in the room are aware of who Joe is, the tone shifts immediately. And I thought it was interesting in the show because obviously the way that he addressed himself to her and then how he was addressed in the room was different. But again, it was fun how once she told the guys who he was, I like how, obviously they just come from, in the show, they came in from the blizzard. So she was still fairly cold. But then as soon as she told, like, is it who he was, next thing you know, she wasn't cold anymore. She had that gun and she was ready. Bam, shoot the guy in her leg. I'm like, mate, she could switch. So one of those things that I'm interested in when it comes to characters that depending on like their mode, how strong they are in their convictions, how much that allows them to fight through whatever like troubles they're dealing with and then have to focus on the task at hand. Taking out this man has been like was it a long time coming for her, and obviously again she was cold as crap a few seconds ago, but then it's just like I know who this guy is and now I'm gonna shoot him. I'm like, okay, well done to you again. Like is it good ass acting there? But as soon as I saw her pick up the golf club, I'm like, okay, here we go, here we go. But I was surprised that he met his end with what I could only describe as what looked like a screwdriver to the neck, I think.
It's the
Unless that was
remainder of
some
the
sort of
golf.
other kind of.
No, it's the club, but the head
Oh, is that?
fell off. Yeah, that's why I was like making a comment of like,
Oh,
yeah, like that golf club like it's been around 20 years, so I guess it got, like the head fell off and what's left is basically like a stake, really, an iron stake. And
oh, okay, okay. That makes sense now because I was just like, why is she stabbing him with a screwdriver looking thing? I guess my eyes were just like kind of glazed over at that time, but yeah, it was still a pretty brutal death, all things considered. Like, as he got pretty beat up. And again, as far as I'm aware, in the game, Tommy was in the room, but he'd been knocked out. And then Ellie, before they left, she got knocked out as well. But in this show, she got winded. And then was still able to crawl over to Joel before, like, was it Dina and Jesse, I think, found her. So again, there was some interesting changes. I think I would have preferred if the scene wasn't on a backdrop of like the outside being so white and clean. I don't know. There's something about like a more moody room with the darker lighting that would have added a little bit more dread to the scene. I don't know, like horror in the daytime can be a really tricky to pull off in terms of getting that sort of sinister vibe. So that did offset it a little bit for me, but overall it's still like an effective scene. But again, just when you hear stuff from the internet, there is a certain like is it expectation that comes around with it, and some people made it out like this was going to be like is it just truly chaotic, horrible, visceral. And I don't know, maybe it's just my threshold for like violence and like people getting killed is just like way too high, and I'm desensitized to chaos. But like this was like not nearly as brutal as I expected
yeah.
it to be. Thematically worked for the show, but still I was just like, hmm, okay, not as bad as I thought it'd be.
Well, like the fact that they chose the first class cabin, whereas in the game, like the cabin looked a lot more dilapidated. It looked like something it went through the chaos of the post-apocalypse, where this one's like, is this so first class that like no one's like ever like it feels so pristine, like the room looks so clean. And as you said, like it's sunny and whatever. Kind of like how they've revised the whole thing to make it work that like, okay, all you haters, critical drinker Ryan, like shout out to Ryan. Like all you haters, we're gonna make it as clean as possible to yeah, like asking like I would say like they really fixed a lot of the logic flaws that a lot of the nitpickers have touched on. The fact that like why is Joel so stupid and this type of thing? Like why was he caught with his pants down? So the whole pairing up of Joel and Dina worked both thematically and like as a story point. Like he spent this last day with someone that he pretty much alluded to in the first episode. This is the daughter that I want, the one who like goes, yeah, like how are you, dad? Like it's because Dina felt like that's the daughter that he wanted to have, whereas Ellie is the daughter that he was basically stuck with from the start. It was a circumstantial relationship. But at the same time, this is the rebellious teenager that he never experienced. When they explained it during his like therapy session, like why are you complaining about your 19-year-old daughter? First world problems in a freaking like post-apocalyptic world, right? So thematically, I would say, yeah, like it's a really cool choice having Dina there. He spent this last day with the daughter that he wanted to have, the ideal daughter. Um, no spoilers going on from here towards the next episodes, but yeah, like it'll be resolved. This whole thing, the whole Ellie Joel type of thing. But then right now, it really feels like there's a lot of unresolved business. But at the same time, going back to like the nitpicking thing, like Joel didn't say his name. In the game he did. He was just like so trusting of this person that he was saving. Whereas like here, like he's a lot more he still has like the training, like the survival instincts are still there. He's not giving a lot of information. It was Dina who was going like, "Hey Joel, blah 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 blah." Like I would say like yeah, Dina
Yeah.
like pretty much outed Joel. And at the cabin, I really liked how the entire entourage, they were kind of like they're here because they're Abby's friend. They've been like comrades in arms for years. They're survivors from Fireflies. But the thing is, they're not really on board with her. Whereas in the original, it just felt like, it felt like Kill Bill, right? You had like the four people, like they're all in well, they're all complicit and culpable, but they're all in on, the execution of the bride. Where here, like, they're all in the execution of Joel. But then, like, they really showed that these characters, like, they're hesitant. They don't want to be here. They don't want to be complicit, but we're here because we're Abby's friends. Manny's like extra aggressive, whereas in the game, like it just felt like he was more well, like in the game, like when you first see him, like he's really aggressive, but as you get to know the characters, like in Abby's point of view, you see that they're, like they're basically just normal human beings. But here like, you kind of see um you humanize them right away. They're not just there to like just murder Joel and probably murder everybody in between it. Like they're showing them as like logical characters going like hey Abby, so if we were able to infiltrate the compound, what do we do next? I don't like I don't want to die here, but they don't want to really say it because like Abby's going through like a lot of grief, which is great. Like I really liked that layer. And also they're extra nice to Dina. Oh, I'm just gonna, like
Yeah,
you're gonna
yeah.
go to sleep, I'm gonna I'm gonna put this like it'll be fine. You'll be okay. We won't touch you. We just want Joel. Whereas
Yeah.
whereas when like when Tom is like fuck you, you stay down. So aggressive to Tommy. Double standards, right?
And I like how when they gave her like, that drug to knock her out, they even just like was it Abby that said, "Oh yeah, you see, like, was it yeah, she's just knocked out. That's all. She's just asleep." And I'm like, wow, like it's even like nice little confirmation there as well. But like you said, it was interesting that the her compadres obviously through a lot of scenes where there was like a lack of dialogue, you could just see certain bits of apprehension, like when it came to some of the stuff she was saying, or when she was doing certain things. You can see either some winces or at least like certain like looks of concern or disgust, or at least what's happening. So it was interesting that like, obviously they're for the cause, but not as deep down rabbit hole as she is. She's the one that's got like, this crazy level of conviction. And again, I think for a lot of people who were saying that Caitlin Dever didn't have like, didn't give off the vibes of like, an Abby to try and pull this off. I think she's been doing like, a pretty damn good job. Again, I've been on board with this lady since before she was cast. So I was just like, yeah, man, give her a
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah, no, yeah. So it's a lot more muted, I would say, Caitlin Dever's performance. Okay, I kind of made a joke about no one saves you, but it's just yeah, kind of muted, and like it's all that like building up of like resentment and hate inside, and then it just came out, like that cathartic moment where because since we've all been attached to Joel from season one, like he's had 10 episodes ahead of Abby. We still don't know Abby's like personal torment except for the fact that Joel killed her dad, which they kind of alluded to with like the other character that was killed by Joel. But yeah, like we are attached to Joel. So we don't feel that catharsis. We just feel that, oh, they're taking away a character that we've gotten to know, and we've gotten attached to, Like there was 3 years between
Yeah.
so 3 years between the first season and this one. So yeah, like all that, whereas in the game there was 10 years. So like there were people who've played and replayed the first game, like when the DLC came out and everything else, right? And then they come in the first two
Yeah.
hours of the game, they just completely get rid of this character that they have 10 years. So I can understand the anger, but I can also understand like Abby's journey, having played the game originally. Just looking back, looking at it really like objectively, she's let this hate build. And then once it happens, she was able to release all that cathartic anger. But was it worth it, right? Like that's a thematic like question that Neil Druckmann probably wanted to ask. Like you've done your revenge.
Yeah.
You know, are you prepared for the next wave to continue this cycle? Because like then Ellie, with all her unresolved issues with Joel, takes all that resentment, all that hate, and will come after not only if you watch the trailers, right? Not only Abby, but everybody in that room.
Yeah.
Everybody in that room is gonna be like, but then it's spiraling, like this whole spiral of revenge, like how many people will get dragged into this vendetta. So like the new episode, as you're saying, like Abby and Dina are making their way to Seattle, right? So yeah, like she just dragged Dina along, the other daughter figure of Joel, to this like revenge quest. And Dina possibly feels like one of the, Manny and Owen and all the people around, the entourage that came with Abby, right? Probably feel the same pensiveness. What are you gonna do when you reach Abby? Like, are you gonna exact the same vengeance as Abby has done for Joel, right? There's that pensiveness. There's that hesitation that you can feel for the characters that are, attached to it. It's pretty interesting to see what will happen with Tommy too, like how Tommy would react to this, where he was like witness to this ordeal, whereas in the TV show, like, he had his own he was busy with the town and saving it from the onslaught, right? So there is that. Kind of want to see like how it plays out in the TV series, and how the later episodes
Yeah.
play out. Because in the game, they really touch on that whole conflict between Tommy and Ellie really wanting to seek justice in her own way, which is really vengeance. So yeah, like
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
interesting.
No, absolutely, man. I think revenge is an interesting, like, sort of motivator when it comes to stories. And depending on how you do it, sometimes, like, just getting revenge in a, simple kind of story where you go from point A to point B and it does feel satisfying is enough. But sometimes it is interesting to go a little deeper and just see what is the toll of the quest for vengeance. Like, is it who else gets caught in the crossfire, whether they are like people that you know or people that you don't know? What happens after you get it? Or if you're on this tale of revenge for ages, like, what does that do to you mentally and physically? Do you die before you even get it? Like, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. And obviously with the game, again, I'm aware of the broad strokes and how it ends as well. So by the time it's over, you are left questioning a lot. And again, I guess that's part of the whole point, but I'm curious to see how this show will do it once it gets to its like eventual conclusion. I did want to touch on the fact that again, I'm not aware of how this went down in the game, but like in the new sort of settlement they have in, was it Jackson? Is that what that place is called in the show? That little like, little fortress they have with the town. It's got breached by like, was it the clickers and all that? I don't know if that was in the game or not, but like seeing
That's
the
a
town get,
yeah, that's a
oh,
PTC
okay.
original. Yeah. It's basically giving Tommy something to do because like, Tommy went with Joel. Just one of those scouting missions gone wrong, patrols that went wrong, right? And in the game too,
Yeah.
Ellie and Dina were doing their own thing. Like that whole scene with Jesse and Abby, like, finding like the grow up, right? And then they start smoking weed. But the thing is, it's with like Ellie and Dina. And you know what happens. So while Joel and Tommy run into Abby and that whole shenanigans thing happen. Like but yeah, like
Yeah.
the whole raid, the whole siege of Jackson, it's a TV original, and I think it's a really good addition, I would say, just to give Tommy something to do. Because like, what would Tommy do now that he's not in that role of being the witness to Joel's end, right? So.
Yeah, and I thought it was, again, a decent sort of escalation of events because the way everything went down in the show, it's sort of just like one sort of bad scenario after another. Like, Abby went out into the cold, freezing her ass off, and sort of went hunting, sort of got lost, and then just happened to run into like, was it Joel while she was being like, chased by a bunch of like, was it the zombies? But then back in the town. Obviously they kept talking about the idea that, should anything go bad, you guys, was it children and the old people go into like, is it the bunkers and like, stay out of sight, where as everybody else just gets onto the rooftops and starts like, shooting from above. And then you just find out that horde just find their way down to the town, break through, and just cause all sorts of chaos. And by the time, Joel and Dina are at Abby's place, they can see, well, actually, on the way up, they can see that the town is like, messed up, but they can't go back because it's too cold. They wouldn't be able to get back in time. Plus, there was the whole thing with the frequency of their radios being messed up as well, which is obviously the indicator for like, is it Ellie and Jesse to go find Joel because he didn't come back in time. So again, I do like when, you're able to create these sort of scenarios where there's an escalation of events where everybody is where they need to be for a logical reason, whereas it felt, there's an easy way that you could have written this where it felt like more convenient because you needed characters in the XYZ position, but this felt like there was at least enough thinking behind putting these events together so everybody needed to be where they needed to be. And I thought it was pretty effective. Like that big chunky like dude that like Tommy was going up against with a flame for her, I was like, yo, man, Tommy can't go out like this. Come on now. You can't do my boy Gabriel Luna like this. He's technically Ghost Rider. We need him back. So I was afraid for him. I was also sort of questioning, like, I guess it's just fear, but this guy could have easily, that guy wasn't moving too quickly near him. He had at least a sort of box-like area that if he just sort of sidestepped a little bit, he probably could have just made a mad dash as the fuel was running out, but he walked himself into a corner. But then when the thing actually did go down, I was like, oh, thank God. We can't be losing my boy, Mr. Luna, just yet. So I was happy about that. Um, but
You're
yeah,
not losing both Miller brothers today.
nah, nah, I would have been salty, man. I've already experienced some like some other stuff during like this week with
Oh,
Andor where
I'm
I'm just
sorry.
like I can't deal. Not again. So yeah. But yeah, again, like it was a solid episode. Again, I think that punch that I think I was expecting didn't come as heavy as I expected it to. But again, like you said, it's TV. There's certain limitations of what can be done. And again, I do enjoy the fact that the show is making more changes to the material in the sense where, again, it doesn't feel like we're just, copying the homework of the game. They're
Yeah.
actually making some interesting changes. And again, I think that must be like due to Druckmann's involvement because I feel like in the hands of someone else who wasn't, fully involved with the game, some of those sort of changes could come across as kind of off or weird. So yeah, I think well under his supervision, things are going well so far. So yeah.
Yeah, like it was it's gonna be a challenge because I'm probably going to be renewing my subscription when Peacemaker 2 comes out, season 2. So I'll probably catch up with the
Mhm.
rest of The Last of Us by then, you know. We're not all sponsored by HBO to make these content, but yeah. Yeah, like it'll be interesting to see like how Bella Ramsey carries the rest of the show as Ellie. The game really worked with the rest of the characters. There's still a lot of characters that will come in, you know. We still haven't seen Jeffrey Wright's character come in. So a lot, there's a lot, there's more to this than meets the eye. So as he said, like what's that? It's gonna be split into two seasons where the speculation is, this is gonna be the rest of the season will be through Abby's point of view, and then we get to do it all over again
Yeah.
with Ellie's point of view, and then we get to do it all over again with Abby's point of view, and possibly the epilogue of the game, basically like just
Yeah.
following the game's trajectory. So yeah, like it'll be an interesting ride. For those who haven't played the game, you're in for a wild ride. It doesn't get
Yeah. And I mean,
it doesn't get any better.
again, I'm very aware of like, was it the darkness that surrounds this game, like this like crazy aura that again, some people love, and there's some people that are just like, yo, this is too deep for me. I need like, some sunshine and rainbows to, offset the pain and suffering. But I'm just curious to see what the viewership will be like as well. Because according to what I know, some people who saw the second episode, they were talking about this like pretty much straight away. And as with most HBO shows that get to a certain level of like notoriety, the internet will, talk about it straight away. My friend who'd only played the first game was made aware of like the spoiler that happened to Joel because he hadn't played the second game yet. But the spoiler for the second episode had already been posted online, so she found out that way. And I was just like, damn,
Ew. Yeah.
that's the worst way. And again, it's not really her fault. Like, it's just the fact that the internet is just like very loud and they just like to spoil everything.
Hmm.
So you just have to be so careful. I tend to mute most things or just try to not be involved in certain amount of discourse or certain articles. Although every so often I might get caught out, especially with IGN or like certain other websites where they'll just decide to post something like, just around 24 hours after something's come out. And they'll be like, oh yeah, what did this mean in this mid credits? Or like this character was in this thing. I'm like, oh, toss off. I haven't even gotten a chance, man. I was just at work or I just woke up.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, I'm mostly good, but at least there's a 5 to 10% chance I'd get caught out. So I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we've developed a behavior over the last decade and a half where we're spoiler proofing ourselves, even though like we really don't want to watch this material. We want to like watch it at our own pace and our own what's that? Like yeah, basically watch it when we want to. Like the whole
Yeah.
but that choice is being removed from us with all these outlets and streamers and influencers that just wanna do it for clout, I guess, like but that's the way it is. Like you're in the internet, like you know beware of spoilers, really. Like the internet is dark and full of spoilers, as they said. Yeah, kind of like kind of
Nicely
like
done.
the
Nicely done.
kind of like the Thunderbolts. I was almost caught myself there. Like the new Thunderbolts movie. I don't know if you've watched it, but yeah, like I didn't want to watch it now. I wanted to wait until it's cheap on Tuesday, but you know, spoilers are dropping left and right. So just in case, I'm browsing through
Ye-
YouTube and I go, no, Piper.
Yeah, I've heard that like, was it the post credits is apparently leaked online. There's information about stuff being shown off already, and I'm just like, mate, it's been like a day and a bit. I'm actually going to see it in like what, a couple hours, so I will be free of like the suffering soon enough.
Nice.
But yeah, I am always just like very wary. So I normally just, if it's affordable to me, whenever it comes to these big kind of films that I know will be spoiled, I'll try to be there within like the opening weekend, just so I can be in and out and then be like, okay, cool. I can do my spoiler free thoughts. And then for the people that are posting spoiler related stuff and I want to look in on that conversation but not contribute because I never want to be like that person, especially on Twitter, which again, I'm not calling it X. Sometimes you'll have like certain threads where they're talking about specific things, but I will never like, is it like it or retweet it? Because I'm just like, I don't know who else is looking at my account who might see this thing. So I'm
Yeah.
just like, let's give it some time. And then eventually I'll go about and like, again, with the whole re-reveal of like Super Saiyan 4 in like Dragon Ball Daima, when that thing went down, because obviously people watch it from the Japanese thing. Sometimes they watch it without the subs. That stuff was all over my Twitter before I even knew it. I was
Wow.
like, what? They brought it back. So I was like, okay, well, there you go. Uh, and the art community is stupidly fast. The amount of that
Oh
Goku
yeah.
artwork that people are able to post like simple hours. I'm like, it'll take me a day, maybe two at my quickest to try and pull some of that off. So I'm like, I hate you. You're all terrible. But yeah, no, spoilers abound
Oh
and it's
yeah.
dangerous whenever it comes to any large IP. So I'm very curious to see what happens when Superman comes around because
Oh God, yeah.
oh man,
Oh, what's that? Because
the
like I'm not a
way
big manga reader. And then when Jujutsu Kaisen came out, right? Like I really
oh
like the
God.
series, but you have all these YouTube commenters commenting on like stuff that hasn't even out yet and will not be tackled in the season. So I'm just like after like season two finished, I'm just like fuck, I'm just gonna power through the manga, cause fucking hell, like I'm not gonna, since like you like a certain IP, so the algorithm will do that and regurgitate whatever it is, even the stuff that you don't want to see, including spoilers. So I'm like, so I finished the whole manga, and then I was just like, I was done, like fuck it, like don't have to think about this, don't have to worry about getting spoiled.
Fair, fair.
Yeah, I'm worried when the One Piece drops. So what is the One Piece?
Oh, yeah, One Piece people are actually horrific sometimes. Whenever there's a new chapter, like I normally see it trending online, and again, especially when before it even shown up in the anime, like when Gear 5 was finally shown off, that thing was everywhere. It
Yeah.
was everywhere. And as someone that doesn't even like, I'll see the odd occasional post, but sometimes you'll have to click on it to actually see it. This thing found its way into my timeline. It found its way onto Instagram. It found its way into most corners I was on. And I'm like, well, this is, I guess, what the new form looks like. And I'm like, okay, I guess. Um, So yeah, I mean, like obviously, there's a whole load of like big palaver and like backstory about how everything goes down with that. But learning that at that time, and that was the way I learned. I was like, huh, yeah, well, I can't leave the internet, but at the same time, I don't want to be here either. It sucks. But yeah, spoiler culture for certain franchises is just horrendous. And some people are actively out there just trying to ruin people's time. Like, did you know that this thing happens? Oh, I can't wait till this happens. I'm like, shut up. What is wrong with you? Do you not think before you type? You scumbag. So yeah, I don't know, man. It's weird.
So that ends our spoiler talk and spoiler warning.
Yeah, all over.
Yeah. So
Um,
welcome back, everybody else who skipped all the spoiler stuff.
yeah, it was a good time over here. You should have been here. There was cake and everything.
Mm, yeah, cake and game and some mini golf.
Um, so yeah, I'm like, is there any other topics you'd like to discuss before we wrap this thing up?
Well, one big thing is like my current game of the year, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Should we call it
Oh
La
yes, yes.
Francais RPG, or should we call it like just a regular turn-based RPG? Like, but yeah, like I mean, fantastic game. Like it really brought back the turn-based RPG. Since some people don't want to call it JRPG, but it is a JRPG. It's heavily influenced by Final Fantasy, by Persona series, but much closer to playing like Nier Automata, Lost Odyssey, and yeah, like fantastic game with also pretty dark. Like very existential, very Jean-Paul Sartre, like really an existential game. Like I have like so much so much love for this game right now. Like really my game of the year at the moment. Which is funny because back in February, Variety basically said that Story Kitchen, the producers that brought Sonic to life, is adapting this game before it even came out. So they had a lot of confidence with this game. So like not even coming out and then like we want to adapt this, we want to make this into a film adaptation. I'm really interested in how they do it. Well, because like the plot alone is, I would say, like movie worthy, We don't have to go into the details of grinding and, collecting all your Pictos and improving your stats. Like that's for the gamers, really. But at its essence, there is like a really deep and like a philosophical like understanding of like how reality and illusion and how people deal with grief. So there's a lot of juicy thematic elements there. The game was voiced by Charlie Cox, our man Daredevil, and there's also Andy Serkis as well, who voiced one of the main characters. So yeah, like the game was pretty loaded with star-studded cast, and also has like a lot of the veteran video game voice actors. Yeah, Ben Starr and Jennifer English, Shadowheart from Baldur's Gate 3. So yeah, like if you haven't picked up the game, it's worth full price, Pick up the game day one. Especially if you're a fan of like Japanese RPGs or turn-based RPGs like Final Fantasy, Persona, that type of thing. And it's also short, so you're not getting into like 100-hour game. If you just want to play the story, it's like 30 to 40 hours. And if you really want to explore the world, that's about 60 hours. So yeah, I'm really interested to see um, how they will adapt the game. Maybe Sydney Sweeney will be attached to it. She's attached to
Yeah, I've
everything.
heard a lot about this game. I've
Yeah,
heard a lot
Sydney
about this
Sweeney
game
is
for a
great.
while now, like especially with the fact that like the developers were French, but they were like, adopting a lot of like elements from, traditional JRPGs. And everyone says that once you get into the rhythm of it, it's just like, a very satisfying like, gaming experience. But they've also made highlight of the fact that, the story is really cool and it's a unique element to it as well, especially with the number and all that. Now, I don't know how much has been revealed in the trailers beforehand in terms of what that actual like, premise is. I'm aware what the premise is because I've listened to like a couple of podcasts talking about it, but the premise alone sounds like a really fascinating, like, was it a story to be adapted into film? How they do it, I am curious because obviously, again, I haven't played the game, so I don't know how much like the main story and gameplay sort of like when say for instance, when you're watching cutscenes in a game, sometimes you'll have like, gameplay that is like, is it sort of interspliced with plot elements. So, you're moving the story ahead while playing the game, but then you've also got games where it's just like, there's just gameplay and then story and then gameplay again. So I'm wondering how much of the actual story will be translated and you'll still get to, see certain aspects of the combat translated into film where they sort of
Mhm.
converge in that kind of way. But again, it's a really fun premise, which again, I don't want to spoil unless it's been, made aware to the
Yeah.
public already, or if it's something you have to know about in the actual game itself. So yeah.
So just discussing the story that was revealed in the trailers. The premise of the game is in year zero, as they call it, there was this elusive paintress that appeared out of nowhere, paints a number on her monolith, and everybody of that age just vanishes. They call it the gommage, right? They just get erased into existence, into like a pile of flowers. So 67 years have passed, therefore 33. Almost every year there's an expedition that goes into the lost continent and no one's ever come back. So, if they keep going at it from now it's 33, there is this sense of urgency, like are you gonna send 10-year-olds like in 20 years? 10-year-olds will be like doing the expedition. Like, really? They want to get this done. They want to like get rid of the paintress and continue on with their lives because the last 67 years has been like um the whole world has been putting their resources into getting rid of this paintress. And yeah, like in every year, because like how the game starts really, like they painted 33. So every 33-year-old just snapped out of existence, like a like a very French Thanos, right? Just amazing how French
Yeah,
this
and
game is. Like you fight mimes, and then like you have characters and fucking like baguettes. I don't know, like it's so fucking French. And then, like, they don't just
man.
say fuck, they just go putain, like man, like fucking hell. I don't know, like it's like
Sounds
they
delightful.
kind of like how like the Japanese like JRPGs work, right? It's very Japanese, like you play it like, oh, that's
Yeah.
like only like you can only find that like in like an anime or like a like a Japanese game. But here it's like, no, we're gonna do something very French, like oh. Yeah,
Sounds great.
yeah, it's something else. Like yeah, something to experience, I would say. Yeah. I think right now it's only out in PS5, PC, free on Game Pass if you have PC Game Pass. Yeah, I want to say a fun time. Like, the combat is fun, story's a little bleak.
Yeah, yeah.
I like Final, like it's like a much bleaker Final Fantasy, I would say. But there are moments of heart, there are moments of light. It's just any other JRPG. But French RPG, I guess. French RPG. Like, I'm gonna stop. We're gonna lose our French viewers.
I would say I apologize in advance, but he's already done it, so I don't know what like small percentage I do get from France. I don't know. I'll have to have a look into the analytics. If the numbers have gone down, I'll know who to look at.
Yeah, I know, right?
But yeah, no, again, cheers for like giving us a scoop on that. I appreciate it. And again, like I wonder how long it will be before this adaptation gets off the ground, and I'm assuming it probably will be in live action because I'm pretty sure they would have, you know, specified if it was another medium. But yeah, I mean, again, we're in this interesting age where like a lot of games are being adapted. If it's not like the ones that have been in the gestation period for like, is it ages? Like, still talking about that bloody Metal Gear Solid film that's supposed to be coming. Like, they've been talking about that since the bloody like late 2000s, I think. But yeah, again, a lot of newer games seem to be getting adaptations like noted down straight away. So I'm just like the ball is always rolling. I
Yeah.
guess it'll just be a case of how many of these actually see the light of day though. But with any success that comes on like, I guess via a streaming service or in the cinema, it does push the medium forward. So it will give like studios, whether they're game or movie wise, that sort of inspiration to be like, okay, what's in this list that we could, make a thing out of? So unless like the whole genre decides to implode on itself and we just get a whole lot of crap, I think we'll still be seeing a lot of like stuff for at least the next like, 5 to 10 years potentially. And it could be interesting or it
Hmm.
could be hell on earth. Well, I don't know.
It could be. But the cool thing about this like Clair Obscur game, it made $1 million. I mean, it sold 1 million copies on the first 3 days of its release, like in its release window. So it's like, wow, like for a double A game, like kind of bordering on like indie, like from a first time developer. A lot of them are like ex Ubisoft employees, right? So they know what they're doing. There is like a massive world within this, I would say, like something like they can make their own Final Fantasy series with the success of this game, I would say. And I'm looking forward to like what they come up with because they have this, yeah, like no spoilers or anything. Yeah, I just want to see what they do with it. And by that time, I guess, the
Mm.
hype is real. And when the movie comes out, it's probably going to be um, you know, pushing for the next game, I would say, right? Like, only way
Yeah.
to go up is up, right? Like, so they're gonna, probably get more funding, make a bigger, better game. Because right now, I think they're attached to Kepler Interactive, which published that Scorn game, that like HR Geiger creepy ass game, right? So, and then
Oh,
played Flintlock. Yeah, it's just like they're a
oh
publisher,
yeah,
double A game, so like like a bit above indie, but slightly closer to what's that, triple A? And it's great. It's amazing, like all these
yeah.
games coming from France, right? Like I don't know if you've played Plague Tale. It's probably one of my favorite games, like when it came out back in 2019. And then I haven't played Requiem.
I've never got around to playing any of those, but I've seen Let's Plays and at least seeing the jump on what they were able to do, like gameplay and tech wise between the first and second game was pretty crazy. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So like it'll probably get like the same treatment as Plague Tale Requiem. I don't know why like I didn't get a lot of hype for the sequel compared to the original because the original like really really amazing story. Yeah, and then now you have like the kid doing like rat telepathy. So
Mhm.
kind of took me out, but at the same time, yeah, like the game really went big. So hoping that like Clair Obscur maintains its roots and hopefully like the next game it doesn't go too crazy that people like forget about it. Like it's usually like the sequels, right? But
Yeah.
these days, I would say like it just gets too big. It gets too big in scope, and it's the same way like how I feel about Star Wars Jedi Survivor versus Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I really like Fallen Order, but when Survivor came
Yeah.
out, like yeah, they jumped the sharp a few times, jumped the Sarlacc a few times. Um, yeah, can't wait for it to finish too. Like it's a like really like that series too. But yeah, like it's just the trend that I find these days. Once the sequel comes out, you're kind of meh about it. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
God of War, let's send our kid to college. Stop with the jokes.
God. All right. Well, I guess if there's no other items on the docket, we're gonna bring this episode to a close. But thank you for listening, as always, ladies and gents. We appreciate your listenership. And yeah, if you have any comments about anything that we've discussed, drop it in the comment section
Yeah.
below, or hit me up where I exist on the Instagram for this account. From Pixel to Celluloid, or find me as Hypersonic55 on most socials. And yeah, Vincent, where can people find you?
So, I'm Vincent Trinita. I'm a writer for One More Game.ph, where I review games. I've just reviewed Clair Obscur recently, and then I'm going through Mandragora, Whispers of the Witch right now. That review is going to be hopefully up by the time this episode is published. Really, but by that time, I think I'm reviewing Death Stranding. But yeah, looking forward to a few games coming out. So yeah, check us out again for my inappropriate humor and weird takes and stuff. Sorry to
Yeah, I mean,
sorry to our French listeners.
so yeah,
I couldn't help myself.
I'll try to do better next time, but I guess there's no guarantees. Uh, but yeah, I guess that's it for now. Take care, ladies and gentlemen, and I guess we'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.